You've probably seen it. Another advisor posting daily on LinkedIn, building a YouTube channel, trying to crack the TikTok algorithm. They're spending hours and hours creating content, chasing followers, and somewhere along the way, they've convinced themselves that this is what marketing looks like in 2026. Meanwhile, their actual practice is struggling because they're so busy being an influencer that they forgot that they're a tax advisor. Hey friends, welcome to the Thrive Advisor podcast, where we help small tax firm owners build practices that are actually sustainable and profitable. I'm Aaron Siegel. Today, we're going to talk about something that might feel counterintuitive if you've spent any time in the guru space: why you don't need to become an influencer to build a thriving practice. Here's what I see all the time. Advisors join these big communities. They learn 100 tax strategies, and somewhere along the way, they pick up the idea that they need to build a personal brand. They need to be on social media every day. They need a YouTube channel. They need thousands of followers. And then they're spending hours and hours creating content for people who will never become clients, while actual prospective clients can't figure out what they do or who they serve. And I fell into this trap early on. I thought I needed to be everywhere saying something, anything, just to stay visible. And what I actually needed was to be somewhere specific, saying something valuable to a small group of people who could actually hire me. Today, I want to reframe how you think about marketing your practice entirely. Because here's the truth. You're not building an audience. You're building a client roster. And that's an entirely different game. Let's get into it. Let's start with some simple math, because this is where everything clicks. Say you want to run a practice with $500,000 of revenue. You might have one other person helping you. You're serving clients well, you're profitable, and you have a life outside of work. That's the goal for many of the advisors I talk to. So how many clients does that take? If your average client is paying you $10,000 a year, that's 50 clients. 50. Not 50,000 followers on Instagram, not a viral TikTok. 50 people who trust you enough to pay you real money to handle their taxes and give them strategic advice. Now, think about what that means for your marketing. You don't need to reach the masses. You just need to be known by a few hundred of the right people. Let me put this another way. What if you could generate 2 or 3 discovery calls per month from qualified prospects? If you're closing 2 out of 3, that's roughly 2 new clients a month. 24 new clients a year. So it doesn't take long to get to 50 if you put in the consistent work. And here's the thing. You don't actually want to onboard a ton of people each month if you're running solo. When you rush new client relationships or delay their onboarding because you're overwhelmed, you're starting those relationships on the wrong foot. 2 new clients a month is sustainable. It gives you time to onboard them properly, set expectations, and actually deliver the experience that turns them into long-term clients who refer others. So we're not talking about building a massive audience. We're talking about being visible enough to generate a handful of conversations each month with the right people. That's a completely different game than chasing viral content. And this is liberating when you actually internalize it. You don't need a podcast with 10,000 downloads. You don't need to post every day. You don't need a course, a book, and a speaking career. You need a tight niche, a clear offer, and a simple system to stay visible to a small group of the right people. I talk to advisors who are exhausted from the content treadmill. They're posting 3 times a day, they're getting likes from other advisors, and wondering why their phone isn't ringing. The problem isn't the content quality. The problem is they're broadcasting to the wrong room. Let me break down each piece of what actually works. So most advisors resist niching. I get it. It feels like you're turning away business. It feels risky. Every guru tells you to niche, and yet something in your gut says, but what if I miss out? And here's what actually happens when you're a generalist. You compete on price. Because when everyone can do what you do, the only differentiator is cost. You become a commodity, and commodities get price shopped. When you specialize, you compete on expertise, and expertise commands premium fees. You become the obvious choice rather than one of many options. I learned this the hard way. Early in my practice, I took on anyone with a checkbook. Real estate investors, doctors, course creators, you name it. Every week felt like starting from scratch. I was constantly learning new industries, new entity structures, new problems. It was exhausting. And I couldn't charge what I was worth because I couldn't demonstrate deep expertise in anything. My proposals were generic because they had to be. I'd write things like tax planning services and strategic advisory without being able to point to specific outcomes I'd delivered for people just like them. Prospects could sense it, and they'd shop me against 3 other generalists, and whoever was cheapest usually won. So I won by price. The moment I narrowed my focus, everything changed. Suddenly, I knew the problems before the clients had told me about them. I could speak their language. My proposals stopped being generic and started being specific. Here's exactly what we'll do in your first 90 days based off what's worked for 30 other creators just like you. And my close rate went through the roof. Here's something else that happened that I didn't expect. I started enjoying my work more. When you serve the same type of client repeatedly, you stop reinventing the wheel. You see patterns, you build systems, the work gets easier, not harder, and you actually get good at it in a way that's impossible when you're constantly context switching between industries. Let me give you some examples of what a tight niche actually looks like. Influencers making $300,000 to $1 million a year, real estate syndicators, franchise owners of a specific brand, consultants in a particular industry, membership community owners, traveling physicians. Notice how specific those are. Not small business owners, not entrepreneurs, not people with S-corps. With a tight niche, 3 things begin to happen. First, your marketing gets easier. When you know exactly who you serve, you know exactly where they hang out, what they read, what podcasts they listen to, and what problems keep them up at night. You're not trying to be everywhere. You're showing up in 3 or 4 places that actually matter. Second, your fees go up because you're not just a tax advisor, you're the tax advisor for influencers or syndicators or whatever your niche is. Specialists command premium pricing because they deliver premium results. And third, your referrals get better. When someone asks a client, "Hey, do you know a good tax advisor?" They don't say, "Yeah, I know someone." They say, "I know the tax advisor for people like us." That specificity matters. It's the difference between a lukewarm introduction and a raving recommendation. Now, the pushback I always hear is, "But Aaron, my area is too small to niche," or "I don't want to turn away good clients." Here's my response. First, the internet exists. You are not limited to your zip code. I have clients I have never met in person. Geography is no longer a constraint for advisory work. And second, niching doesn't mean you literally refuse other clients. It means your marketing and positioning are focused. If a great client outside of your niche finds you and wants to work with you, take them. But don't dilute your message by trying to appeal to everyone. Your website, your content, your outreach should all speak to one type of person. That clarity is what makes you memorable. And once you have your niche, you need an offer that feels like a no-brainer to your ideal client. I want to borrow a framework from Alex Hormozy here. He talks about 4 variables that make an offer valuable: the dream outcome, the perceived likelihood of success, time delay, and the effort required. Let me translate that for a tax advisory practice. What's the dream outcome for your niche? It is not accurate tax compliance. Nobody wakes up excited about compliance. The dream outcome is something like keep more of the money you're earning, stay out of trouble with the IRS, build wealth efficiently, and not have to think about this tax stuff. Your clients want peace of mind. They want to know someone competent is watching their back. What's the perceived likelihood of success with you versus a generalist? This is where your niche expertise matters. If you've worked with 30 influencers, you can say that. You can share anonymized case studies. You can speak their language. A generalist can't do that. When a prospect hears that you've solved their exact problem dozens of times, their confidence in you skyrockets. How do you reduce the time to result? You may have a systematized onboarding process. You could do a tax projection in the first 30 days to show them immediate value. You may have templated strategies ready to deploy for their specific situation. Speed matters. If you can show them a win quickly, they know they made the right choice. How do you reduce effort on their part? This is the client experience stuff. Do they have to chase you for updates? Do they have to figure out what documents you need? Or do you make it effortless? The best practices I know make working with them feel easy. Clients know what to expect, when to expect it, and what they need to do. That clarity is part of the value. When you nail all 4 of these, your fee becomes almost irrelevant because the value is so obviously there. I'll put it another way. The goal isn't to be cheaper. It's to be so specifically valuable to someone that they would feel stupid going elsewhere. When your offer is dialed in for your niche, price objections mostly disappear. Okay, so you've got your niche, you've got a compelling offer. How do you actually get clients without spending your life on social media? 2 channels that actually work for smaller firms: referrals and organic positioning. Let me break down both. Referrals first. Here's the thing about referrals. You don't get them by asking for them. You get them by being referable. And you get them strategically by building relationships with people who already serve your niche. Think about it. Fellow CPAs and tax advisors may not be a consistent source of referrals. We're all competing for the same pool of clients. But you know who aren't competing with you? Attorneys, financial advisors, bookkeepers, business coaches, fractional CFOs, marketing agencies that work with your niche, and who already has the trust of your ideal client. That's who you need to know. And here's the key. You don't build those relationships by asking them to send you clients. That's backwards. You create them by making their life easier. Answer questions for them when they come up. Co-create some content with them. Do a joint workshop where you both provide value to their audience. Be the tax advisor they look smart for knowing. And think about what these referral partners need. A bookkeeper wants to look competent to their clients. When a client asks a tax question that they can't answer, they want someone reliable to send them to. If you become that person, you become part of their value proposition. They're not doing you a favor by referring. They're providing a service to their client. Same with business coaches. Their clients are asking about entity structure, S-corp elections, retirement plans. If the coach has a go-to expert for those questions, they look more valuable. You're helping them serve their clients better. When you approach referral relationships this way, as partnerships rather than asks, everything changes. When they have a client with a tax question, you want to be the first name that comes to mind. And you become that by becoming genuinely helpful, not by being pushy. I know advisors who have built entire practices on 3 or 4 referral relationships. No social media presence at all. Just deep relationships with the right people who serve the same niche from a different angle. That's it. No Instagram strategy, no YouTube grind, just genuine value to communities that already trust someone else. Now, organic positioning. You don't need to post every day. You need to be findable and credible when someone searches for you or asks about you. For most B2B niches, that means LinkedIn. Not posting daily motivational quotes, just being present with a clear profile, occasional content that demonstrates expertise, and engagement in conversations where your ideal clients are. Your LinkedIn profile should answer 3 questions in the first 5 seconds. Who you help, what you help them with, and why you're credible. That's it. Most advisor profiles are a jumble of alphabet soup credentials and generic statements. Be specific. I help course creators making $300,000 to $1 million per year keep more of what they earn through proactive tax planning beats tax professionals serving small businesses every single time. Beyond that, think about where your niche already congregates. What communities are they in? What online groups? What conferences do they go to? What podcasts do they already listen to? You don't need to build your audience from scratch. You need to show up consistently in the spaces where your audience already exists. And when you do create content, make it count. A few cornerstone pieces that demonstrate your expertise are worth more than 100 throwaway posts. Make the definitive guide to S-corp planning for people in your niche. Record 3 or 4 podcast episodes that answer the exact questions your ideal clients are asking. That content works for you for years. I have blog posts that I've written in the past that still generate discovery calls. That's the power of creating something substantial rather than chasing the daily content hamster wheel. Here's what I want you to understand about all this. The gurus selling you marketing courses have a different business model than you do. They need thousands of followers because they're selling $500 courses to the masses. Their business model requires volume. That's why they tell you to post 3 times a day, build a personal brand, chase viral content. But here's what most people don't realize. Most of these online influencers don't actually know how to build an advisory business. They know how to make content that gets attention. And those are completely different skills. Getting 1 million views on a superficial strategy video doesn't mean you know how to onboard a client, deliver consistent service, price appropriately, or build systems that scale. It just means you know how to get clicks. And they're teaching you to do what they do, not what actually builds a practice. Your business model is the opposite. You need 50 clients paying you $10,000 a year. You don't need volume, you need depth, you need trust, and you need to be known by a small group of people who can actually afford your services and need what you offer. Here's what actually works. Content that is deeply specific to your niche, made visible where your people already gather. That has infinitely more impact than chasing vanity metrics. We're not going for views, we're not going for likes, we are going for dollars in our pocket and clients on our roster. Stop comparing yourself to people playing a different game. The advisors I know who are thriving aren't Instagram famous. Most of them have very modest online followings, but they're known in their niche, they're trusted by the right people, and their book's solid without spending 20 hours a week on content creation. Let me address a few things I know some of you are thinking right now. But what if my niche is too small? Here's the thing. If there are 1,000 businesses in your niche and you need 50 clients, you only need to capture 5% of the market. It's not a small pond problem, that's a targeting problem. And 1,000 businesses is probably much smaller than your actual addressable market, which, thanks to the internet, is usually national or perhaps even global. What if I picked the wrong niche? You can change. Niching isn't a blood oath, it's a strategic focus. If you serve course creators for 2 years and decide you'd rather work with franchisees, you can shift. Your skills transfer, your systems transfer. What you learned about serving one niche makes you better at serving the next one. And what about clients I already have who don't fit my niche? Keep serving them well. You don't have to fire good clients to niche down. You just stop marketing to everyone and start marketing to someone specific. Over time, your client base will naturally shift towards your niche as you attract more of those clients and the legacy clients naturally move on. So I'm not ready to niche because I don't know enough about any one industry. This is actually backwards. You niche first and then you learn. Serving the same type of client repeatedly is how you become an expert. You don't need to show up as the world's foremost authority. You just need to be committed to learning their world and serving them well. The expertise comes from the repetition. Here's your Thrive takeaway for this episode. You're not building an audience. You're building a roster. 50 clients at premium fees is better than 50,000 followers who will never pay you a dime. The path is simple, even if it's not easy. Pick a tight niche, craft an offer that feels like a no-brainer for that niche, and show up consistently for a small group of the right people through referral relationships and targeted organic presence. That's it. No fancy funnels, no viral content strategy, just clarity about who you serve and discipline about showing up for them. Here's what I want you to do this week. First, write down who your best 3 clients are. What do they have in common? Is it industry, revenue level, business model, personality type? That pattern is your niche waiting to be claimed. Second, identify 3 people who already serve that same type of client from a different angle. A coach, a bookkeeper, an attorney, whoever. Reach out to one of them. Not to ask for referrals, just to introduce yourself, learn about their business, and see if there's a way you can be helpful to them. Third, look at your LinkedIn profile. Does it clearly communicate who you help and what you help them with? If a prospect in your niche landed on your profile, would they immediately know you're meant for them? If not, fix it. 10 minutes, make it specific. That's your action plan. Niche clarity, 1 referral relationship, 1 clear profile. Do those 3 things and you'll be ahead of 90% of advisors who are still trying to build an audience instead of a practice. If you're sitting there thinking, okay, but how do I actually implement this at a deeper level? That's exactly what we do inside the Thrive Advisor Collective. It's a community of advisors who are building sustainable practices, not chasing guru dreams. We workshop this stuff together, you get coaching from me, and you'll finally have peers who understand the unique challenges of running a small tax practice. The link is in the show notes. That's it for today, friends. If this episode shifted how you think about marketing your practice, do me a favor and share it with another advisor who needs to hear it. Someone who's exhausted from the content treadmill and needs permission to stop chasing followers and start building clients. You've been listening to the Thrive Advisor podcast. Work smarter, serve better, thrive always. We'll see you next time.